So I got a question by email from a guy who is a copywriter, and he wants to contact nutritional supplement companies to sell his services. Now, this has got nothing. Obviously, he's not a practice owner. He's not approaching practice owners, but the lesson that I drew from it applies to a practice owner. So here's the story. He emailed me and said that he'd read a book that I once published about copywriting. And he said, "Loved your book, but I've got a question. What would you say, or any thoughts on what to say in a video pitch to supplement companies?" So I replied by saying, "What's the purpose of the video?" And the guy said, "The purpose of the video is to sell them a sales letter." Okay. So I said, "How do you know they need a sales letter?" How do you know? Maybe he does know. Maybe he's done his research. Maybe he's already got a relationship with them and knows that they don't have a sales letter yet and they want a sales letter now, or got a sales letter and they're interested in hearing from people who think they can improve on it and test a new version. I don't know, to say the truth. The guy hasn't replied yet, so I don't know where the conversation is going to go or if he's going to take offence to my questioning. I don't really care either way, but my point is, it may be, reading between the lines, it seems to me like the guy, I don't know anything about him, we don't know each other, I don't know whether he's a good copywriter or salesperson or anything, I don't know, but it seems to me like he's focused on what he wants to sell and who he wants to sell it to, which, yes, is important, but my questions, as in what's the purpose of the video and how do you know they need a sales letter, were more about the business owner or the person representing the companies that he was contacting. Because chances are he has absolutely no idea whether each of those companies need a sales letter or whether and how a sales letter is going to help them. He's just coming at it from his own perspective. I want to write sales letters. These are some companies that could benefit from sales letters in the industry that I want to serve. And that's as far as it goes. And this reminds me of a principle of marketing and sales and negotiation that I learned from Jim Camp, who's sadly no longer with us, but and sadly not many people know of his work. He was brief story behind Jim's career was that hopefully I'm not getting this too wrong, but what I remember about it, the interesting part of his story was that he taught negotiation basically, and he got so good at it that he was an FBI negotiator was on his returning home from the Philippines to the US, where a negotiation had gone wrong, and someone ended up dead. And he picked up Jim's book from the bookshelves in the airport, and for the first time he thought, this will work. Like, most of the negotiation books sound great and they're motivating, but some of the concepts just don't hold out in the real world, and especially in intense situations like an FBI negotiators find themselves in. So anyway, this guy bought Jim's book and invited him into the FBI, and Jim ended up delivering training for FBI negotiation, which later, or same time, I'm not really sure, he applied to a commercial setting, ended up coaching large negotiations, and taught his negotiation system to people like me who aren't involved in corporate negotiations, but who, like pretty much everyone on the planet, is involved in negotiation on a day-to-day basis, not only at work but also with family, friends, etc. And one of the principles Jim teaches in his system is that you should always remain in the other person's world, meaning to bring about agreements where everyone maintains the right to say no, which is how Jim defined negotiation. You should always be in the other person's world. So in this case, it occurred to me immediately, based on the questions from this guy, that he was in his own world. He wasn't really thinking about what the other person wanted. And it occurred to me that he could be much more successful if he could shift out of that and focus on the interests and problems and pains of the other person and how he might be able to solve them. So taking that from abstract to practical, if I were in his shoes, I'd have identified the companies that I wanted to work with and help, and I'd have done some really in-depth research on each of them, the decision makers, their history, their structure, their marketing approaches, what they were doing, what was working. But then when I went into the conversation, I wouldn't start with what I can do for you, but more, I have no idea what I can do for you because I don't really know what your problems are and what your pains are. So how about we talk about that first, or something along those lines, because the fact of the matter is, assuming he's got no pre-existing relationship with these people, which I don't think he has based on the question and the phrasing of the question, he really has no idea whether a sales letter will help them and how it will help them. And it may be the case that doing something else for them would be way more valuable. And this is a mistake that I've made in the past when I was working in marketing as a freelancer. And I think the majority of other, not just freelancers, but other business people and business owners make. And the reason I bring it up here on this channel is because it's a principle also applies to practice owners and managers, because the sad reality is that most business owners, and I extend this way beyond healthcare practices, when they market their services or their practice or their people, the focus is on them rather than the people that they'd really like to attract. It talks about the special offer we've got, or why we're so much better than other people, or this award we've just won in the local business magazine, all of which are useful subjects to talk about, but they're much more useful to prospective patients if you talk about it from their perspective. So, I'll give you an example of that. You've just won best healthcare practice in your area, and you've been given an award by the local Chamber of Commerce. That's all about you. Fine, it's important, it's valuable, it can be useful for building your authority and prestige, but you can use that and speak about it in terms of how it's helpful to your potential patients or your patients that already exist, by saying, we've just won this award, and we won the award for our excellent customer or patient service. Here's one example of that. And then you tell a story of a patient who came into your practice and unlike anywhere else. This is the experience they had. This is the outcome they had. This is why it was great value for their money and their time. And then wrap up by saying, I think this is a good example of the reason why we won the award, but it's really all about you, because without you, we wouldn't be here. And the most important thing to us is not awards, but to continue providing excellent service. We're grateful for the recognition that comes from the award. We really just want to do the right thing for you, and then you go on. So my point is, this is a principle that applies to any type of healthcare practice, any form of marketing or communication, from dealing with patients at reception, from seeing patients in your diagnosis service or your diagnostic service or your treatment services, from introducing additional products and services that they can benefit from. And the idea is, see if you can do all of those things more effectively by switching your focus from your service or your practice to the patient or the prospective patient, and demonstrate what you can do for them, demonstrate your interest in their health and their well-being by really putting yourself in their shoes and asking questions, answering questions, providing additional services, providing the existing services in a different way, simply by doing what's right for them, what you think is best for them. And beyond that, if you don't know what's right for them, because you don't know specifically what their problem or challenges are right now in relation to what you're doing for them, then admit it and ask them, and be willing to listen to their answer and adjust the value you provide with your services based on that answer. So that's all I wanted to say. I thought it might be useful. It was useful to me when I learned it, and it's something I do every day in my life in practice, and when dealing with my family and friends and colleagues, clients. So there we go. That's all for now, and I'll see you soon.